Hello, Isaac. Can you hear me? I can
I
hear
hear
some
some
noise.
noise.
I cannot
I
hear
cannot
you.
hear
Is it
you.
headphones?
Headphones?
I can't hear.
Can't hear.
Let me see.
Let me see.
I'm saying. Nothing. Maybe you can try again.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our live session. We're just going to wait again for our guest to rejoin us. I think that she may have had some network difficulty, but if you're here, please let me know where you're joining from, if you're a medical doctor, and how you found out about this session. It's helpful if you also leave a comment just to let me know if you can still and if the sound is okay.
Can you hear me
Can you
now?
hear me now?
I hear you. Okay. Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, but you can share.
It's feedback because there are two people on their systems on the same live. So you have to be in different rooms, otherwise we'll have feedback. But other than that, it sounds good now. So can you hear me now? Uh-oh. Hi. I can't hear you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Hi, Adedoy, a medical doctor based in Lagos, Nigeria. You discovered this event on Instagram. I'm glad. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of knowledge out of it because today I'll be speaking with Rosalia. And this is what Rosalia has done in her career. She continues to do that, right? She's been supporting the integration of internationally trained medical doctors into the Canadian healthcare system for almost 15 years. So she has over 15 years of experience in this field. She's worked as a program manager and lead advisor in one of the most respected professional associations for internationally trained physicians in Canada. She has worked closely with licensure stakeholders and regulatory bodies and has helped in creating and implementing activities that address the educational and integrative needs of IMGs. So, especially on their pathway to licensure. She's now retired from that job and she continues to share her knowledge and all that she has done in the field to help support IMGs who are trying to still get licensed in Canada. So the focus of our work is just helping you to move beyond just all the information that you get all over the internet and so that you get structured understanding of how to approach your journey and to have more clarity and just understand the direct steps you should take to be able to achieve this in the most effective manner. So you're speaking with the best person who can help you um, in this regard. And I'm speaking of Rosalia. So, Rosalia, thank you so much for making our time and joining me today. And obviously, we have a lot of doctors here in the house who are eager to hear from you. So, over to you.
Thank you, Ese. It was a lovely introduction. Uh, Good evening or good afternoon. It's good afternoon for me, but for you, I suppose it is. Can you
Can you
hear me?
hear me?
Okay,
Okay,
it
it
is
is
good
good
evening
evening
because
because
as I
as I
know
know
that
that
most
most
of
of
you are
you are
joining
joining
from
from
Nigeria,
Nigeria,
and
and
probably
probably
it
it
is
is
around
around
7,
7,
8
8
o'clock
o'clock
Friday
Friday
night,
night,
the
the
end
end
of
of
an
an
exhausting
exhausting
work
work
week.
week.
And I
And
want
I
to
want to
say
say
thank
thank
you
you
for
for
choosing to
choosing to
attend
attend
that
that
session
session
tonight,
tonight,
with the
with the
hope
hope
that you
that you
will
will
have
have
a
a
real
real
benefit
benefit
from
from
your
your
presence
presence
here.
here.
So,
So,
throughout
throughout
my
my
experience,
experience,
throughout my
throughout my
extensive
extensive
clinical
clinical
practice,
practice,
sorry,
sorry,
not
not
clinical, but
clinical, but
my
my
practice
practice
working
working
with
with
international
international
medical
medical
graduates and
graduates and
supporting
supporting
their
their
integration
integration
into the
into the
Canadian
Canadian
healthcare
healthcare
system.
system.
I
I
really have
really have
seen many
seen many
successes,
successes,
but
but
unfortunately,
unfortunately,
I
I
have
have
seen
seen
also
also
many
many
who get
who get
stuck
stuck
in the
in the
process.
process.
And
And
not
not
because they
because
don't
they
pass
don't
the
pass the
exams
exams
or
or
because they
because
don't
they don't
put
put
enough
enough
effort,
effort,
but
but
mainly
mainly
because
because
they
they
actually
actually
miss
miss
to
to
consider the
consider the
complexity
complexity
of the
of the
process
process
and the
and the
hidden
hidden
rules
rules
of the
of the
system,
system,
which is
which is
asking
asking
them not
them not
to
to
demonstrate
demonstrate
their
their
clinical
clinical
expertise,
expertise,
but
but
rather
rather
than
than
to
to
show the
show the
internalization
internalization
of
of
knowledge
knowledge
about
about
social
social
and
and
professional
professional
expectations,
expectations,
about
about
communication
communication
values,
values
and the
and the
roles
roles
that
that
are
are
expected
expected
of
of
a
a
physician
physician
within the
within the
Canadian
Canadian
healthcare
healthcare
system
system
to
to
play
play
nowadays.
nowadays.
Usually,
Usually,
they
they
underestimate
underestimate
this
this
importance of
importance of
getting
getting
explicit
explicit
support
support
with
with
the
the
reshaping
reshaping
or
or
with
with
the
the
change or
change
with
or
the
with the
formation
formation
of
of
their
their
professional
professional
positioning
positioning
area,
area,
of their
of their
professional
professional
identity,
identity,
I would
I would
say.
say.
They are
They are
following,
following,
as
as
I
I
mentioned,
mentioned,
just
just
general
general
advice,
advice,
which may be
which may be
found
found
on
on
these
these
platforms
platforms
or
or
whatever is
whatever is
available for
available for
you
you
online.
online,
And
and
then
then
they
they
miss
miss
this
this
personalized
personalized
direction
direction
that
that
clearly
clearly
indicates
indicates
any
any
next
next
step
step
in the
in the
process,
process,
with
with
attached to
attached to
these
these
steps
steps
clearly
clearly
identified
identified
timeline.
timeline.
Now,
Now,
that was
that
the
was the
reason
reason
actually
actually
which
which
made me
made me
decide
decide
that
that
I will
I will
organize the
organize the
session
session
tonight.
tonight.
I will
I will
center
center
it
it
about
about
everything that
everything that
goes
goes
beyond the
beyond the
exams,
exams,
beyond
beyond
documents,
documents,
and
and
beyond
beyond
applications.
applications.
So,
So,
the
the
purpose of
purpose
our
of our
session
session
tonight
tonight
will be to discuss these invisible factors of success and the hurdles. One, who is starting the pathway to licensure in Canada needs to contemplate and be prepared to cope with. My aim tonight is not to speak about eligibility criteria, but to clarify that the licensure process in Canada is not just something that is assessing your clinical competence. It is a transformation of how you think, of how you position yourself, and how you function, of course, within the professional culture of this new for you clinical context. I actually do believe that this is paramount for you before actually moving to Canada, because it will help you create your own licensure strategy that will determine, or I will say even predetermine, the potential of your professional realization upon or after your arrival here. Why? Because the immigration process will bring you to Canada, but in fact, that strategy will either accelerate or retard your professional integration. And now, let's see actually who the international medical graduates in Canada are, since you soon are going to be one of these physicians. And also, we will discuss what you may not be aware of about international medical graduates in Canada. International medical graduates is a term that is standardly used within the professional community to name foreign trained physicians who have obtained their medical degree outside of Canada, regardless of their citizenship status, and who are seeking integration, professional integration within the Canadian healthcare system, either through the licensure process or through some alternative career. The IMGs are not a homogeneous group of physicians. They differ because of their educational and practical background, the years of experience or clinical experience or lack of such experience, their professional goals and aspirations, the stage at which they are in the licensure process. However, there are two main subgroups comprising the content of this term, big subgroups about which you need to know. The first one, and the bigger one, consists of so-called naturalized immigrants or naturalized Canadian citizens. Physicians who first completed their medical education overseas and later immigrated to Canada. Recently, the term internationally trained physicians is used, but it is not very popular yet. And still, they are comprising this subgroup of international medical graduates. Of course, among them, there are some new graduates, but typically, the larger majority of this group is comprised of physicians who usually bring postgraduate training, prior clinical experience, often very extensive one, and also exposure to diverse clinical contexts, sometimes in diverse healthcare systems, along with the strong professional identity of being independently practicing physician. Actually, I do believe that many of you belong to this group. The biggest challenges that they face refer, of course, to the necessity when they enter the country simultaneously to navigate both the immigration or settlement demands together with the licensure demands. Also, the need to adapt quickly to the values driving the delivery of healthcare here, while often struggling with the differences in communication and expectations for professional performance. And also, they lack Canadian experience, they lack local references. The other subgroup of IMGs includes Canadians studying abroad or abroads, although it is a grammatical mistake because abroad is an adverb, not a noun generally, or these are called CSAs, physicians who are most often children of first generation of immigrants, not rarely even of physicians who immigrated here and who are practicing medicine already in Canada. These IMGs, or Canadians who graduated abroad, were either born here or came to Canada at a younger age. This means that they completed their secondary education here, their high school. Some of them may have obtained even a bachelor degree or even a master's degree. And after that, they went overseas and completed their medical education. Obviously, they don't face immigration barriers and they don't need to deal with these settlement issues. They are much more familiar with the Canadian social and cultural context. They have stronger local network and support system. They may lack, let's say, postgraduate training and prior clinical or hands-on experience because many of them graduated as international students overseas and even may have not obtained their licenses to practice in the jurisdiction of training. But they are younger, first of all, and they have no other country to go to. They return to Canada, and the only pathway to licensure for them is through further residency training here. In fact, they resemble much more those who graduated from a Canadian medical school than the typical IMGs. But they are still considered international medical graduates. It is very important to understand that when it comes to residency seats, to the allocation of residency seats, this becomes crucial because both of these subgroups are assessed together as IMGs versus CMGs. Now, for your information, I just will give you some numbers because the statistics of the 2025-26 current cycle is not available yet. The match day of the second iteration was just a couple of days ago on April 21st. I will use the one from the 2024-25 current cycle. So in 2025, Canadian medical graduates had a match rate of close to 98-99%, while the IMGs had a match rate of approximately 40 to 45%. Translated to numbers, this means that 851 IMGs were matched all over Canada out of a pool of 1,800 to 2,000 applicants. And for your information, every year there are around 3,990 to 4,000 residency positions each year in Canada. Now, although there is no official comparative statistics of the match rates between naturalized IMGs and Canadians who studied abroad, considering the fact that the latter are in much favorable starting position, still anecdotal assumptions about prevailing matching decisions may be made. Of course, while recognizing that differences in outcomes also depend highly on such factors as strategic positioning, readiness, clinical exposure, and of course, alignment with program expectations. Now, what ultimately matters here is not, I would say, which group you belong to, but again, how you understand your position within the system and how strategically you navigate it when you know that you will be faced with a cruel or significant competition. Well, I am bothering actually to speak about this because it is a hidden aspect of the decision-making process about which you need to be aware. Moreover, since last year, even those who graduated from a medical school in the United States are considered international medical graduates. And most of them are Canadians, of course, who studied abroad. In this direction, you may know, or you may have heard or not, I don't know, about the drama with the last minute change in the residency provincial criteria of Ontario, which happened out of the blue last year when actually the CARMS application portal had been opened and there were just 2 weeks left to send the application before the due date of that application. Now, Ontario is the province with the highest volume of immigration flow and concentration of newly arrived and arriving constantly immigrants in the country. It is also the province where most of the medical schools offering residency training are situated. Therefore, that last minute change affected many of your fellow IMGs, unfortunately, who were ready to apply for residency through the 25-26 CARMS cycle. But what exactly happened? Ontario introduced a rule restricting IMGs to apply for residency positions through the first or the main CARMS match, residency match. We'll speak about this later. And if they were not able to demonstrate one of the 3 conditions. And the first one asked them to demonstrate that they have been residing in Ontario for at least 24 weeks or 6 full months before the application due date, or they have studied on a full-time basis in person for a period of minimum 2 years in a Canadian Ontarian high school or in a university in Ontario. Now, very unfair and very sad situation. Unsurprisingly, it actually triggered a lot of backlash, and as a result, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice stayed the policy, but it was temporary and allowed the IMGs to apply temporary. They gave them some extension to submit the application for programs in Ontario. But again, unfortunately, because of that whole situation and that chaotic, I would say, situation, not many were ready to submit their applications within this short period of time. And now in March, actually, that policy was waived out. Okay, and although that policy was in fact never implemented in full, just 12 days ago, the government of Ontario again is proposing that policy now to be put into legislation. Now, Ese will explain what exactly it means, but if it happens, it will affect IMGs again who are applying for residency positions through the upcoming 2026-27 cycle, and it may affect you as well in the time after. Now, not to say that Alberta has been maintaining a similar rule for years, restricting IMGs, who are out of the province to get access to residency positions there. Now, the question is what this situation shows and why I'm discussing this. Not just to give you information, definitely, but what conclusions we can make. Sorry. The first is that the licensure process is very, very volatile. Not only when it concerns residency applications and the residency pathway to licensure, but also it is applicable to all other pathways leading to licensure. Policy change out of the blue. Eligibility criteria shift, and what applies today may not apply tomorrow. Now, that is why approaching the licensure journey as a fixed set of steps may be very misleading. It requires awareness, adaptability, thoughtful decision making at each stage of the process. Or, in other words, it is not just about knowing the pathway, but about understanding how the system evolves and where exactly you fit within that evolving system. You must stay constantly current with eligibility and all other requirements in the process when you step into that process from day one to the end of your journey. Believe me that it is not an easy task because the information is overwhelming and you very easily may get lost in that ocean of information. Even I myself, because now after my retirement, I have much more time just to go to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to see what's going there. And I see a lot of misleading or incorrect information intended for IMGs. Unfortunately. Now, the second thing here, what comes from that specific situation, is that based on your professional background, you need to be aware about all of the opportunities for licensure that are available for you. And you have to be ready to prepare for and explore them simultaneously. Don't say, I will apply for license for CARMS, for residency, and if I'm not successful, then I will look at for integration through practice readiness assessment. No. We'll speak in a moment about these pathways to licensure that are available for IMGs in Canada. But here, the most important thing is to know very well what works for you and what doesn't. It means that from day one, you need to be able to prepare plan B or even plan C. And let's consider this hypothetical situation. Even if you are new graduate in Nigeria, you just completed your medical school, you didn't go to your internship and you started the immigration process, but the immigration process itself takes time and you need to know what to do because you still have choices. You may decide to go and complete your internship and obtain your independent license to practice while waiting in Nigeria and at the same time passing the required Medical Council of Canada exams. It will open one door for you, one more door for you, in addition to your application for further residency training in Canada because you are still new graduate. The other option that you may have is to explore the opportunity and apply or try to obtain clinical fellowship in Canada, and if you can afford it, come to Canada earlier as an international student. Now, one thing to know, though, when you make this decision is that fellowship is not recognized as credit for licensure. But if you actually expect to get your permanent residency soon and you know that you are new graduate, if you obtain, let's say, fellowship in Ontario, you will able to demonstrate something at one moment and be eligible to apply for residency. The other option is to take Plan C. to prepare and take PLAP 1 and PLAP 2, and then go to the United Kingdom and enter residency training in family medicine there. It's a 3-year program, but still, then you will be able, if you complete this and obtain your license to practice after completing postgraduate training in the United Kingdom, you may make direct transfer here, obtaining your independent license to practice. Of course, this is a very, very hypothetical situation, but I just want to show you that knowing the rules, knowing the eligibilities, consulting your immigration counselor, because these things work together, and getting the right information about the options for your licensure integration, professional integration here is very, very important. Now, let's see what the pathways to licensure in Canada are currently available for international medical graduates. The first one, and the most standard one, that all IMGs who have obtained a medical degree listed on the World Directory of Medical Schools are eligible to explore, but only in the condition that they are either permanent residents or Canadian citizens, is the pathway to licensure through residency or through the CARMS process. Now, only one province, which is Quebec, is not asking currently to be either a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen in order to apply for a residency there. These of you who know French may opt in this province. In addition to passing the Medical Council of Canada Qualifying Examination Part 1 and the National Assessment Collaboration Objective Structured Clinical Examination, or the NAC-OSCE exam, the CARMS applicants need also to meet the specific provincial criteria. With the example which I provided, actually, you already probably understood this. The provincial criteria of the province to which they are applying. Then they need to meet the specific criteria of the program, or this time the specialty program is referring to a specialty within that province, within specific university to which they will be applying. They also need to demonstrate their English language proficiency by passing either IELTS academic, not the general one, which may be required for immigration purposes, but the academic one. They need to demonstrate stable 7 in each of the language strands and an overall band score of 7. The other test which they may choose to pass is the occupational English test medicine. It turns out that this is the easiest one for international medical graduates, or one test which is a typical Canadian, and it is called CELPIP, or Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program, CELPIP General, and get 9 on each of the language skills tested with that test. For OET medicine, you need to have B. Overall B and B in each section of the test. Now I know that in Nigeria, by the way, English is your language. You studied English in school, your programs were in English. However, Nigeria, unfortunately, is not one of the country which is accepted for exemption. So you need to pass that test. And my impression is that all of you who are actually very fluent with the language, all of us who are fluent with the language, when we speak, give advantage to fluency. But writing, unfortunately, becomes a problem because everything crystallizes there, and we have to return to some specific rules when preparing for these tests. Now, the test is valid for 2 years, but even the test may be valid. You need to know the test result. You need to know when exactly you need to pass the test, especially if you would like to apply for a residency seat, because your mark needs to be valid a year ahead. So the test itself may be valid, but it may not be valid, the result of the test. It may not be valid to support your residency or CARMS application. Now, all residency applications in Canada are processed to the Canadian Resident Matching Service, or CARMS, which is a centralized online application portal that opens in September each year and connects applicants to residency programs. CARMS also uses a match algorithm that actually ensures fair decisions about matching. The CARMS application cycle is once a year, but it is stretching in 2 calendar years. So any CARMS cycle has the year of application and the match year. Each cycle runs in 2 iterations or 2 matches. The first match is the main match, and all of the 37 medical schools in Canada that offer postgraduate medical training participate in this match. What you need to know is that through the first CARMS iteration, through the first CARMS match, you are competing for IMGs only for the seats allocated for IMGs. Now, when the results of the first CARMS match are available, and if a program does not fill all of the positions, programs participate in the second CARMS iteration, but we never know how many of them will actually participate in the second CARMS match, what positions will be available. In the second CARMS match, you compete with Canadian medical graduates who actually are for the same seat for the same seats. The seats are allocated for both IMGs and Canadian medical graduates. Now, what are the challenges I won't discuss, as I said, the eligibility criteria because my aim is different. But in details, if we have time later, I may tell you something about the MCCQE1, the Nakowski exam. But you need to know that the difference between these two exams is that MCCQE1 is a licensing exam. It is required for a licensure. Neither of these exams is a prerequisite for the other one, and you may decide which one you will take first. However, as MCCQE1 is a licensing exam, those who graduated from medical school in Canada are also required to pass this exam. However, they may enter a residency training before actually passing the exam and take the exam while they are in their first year of residency here in Canada. While for the IMG, it is a required exam to support your application for residency. Nakowski is an exam required only for entering further residency training in Canada. Now, in terms of difficulties, it again depends on your background. It is considered that the Nakowski is more complicated because it asks you to carry out clinical communicative tasks while interacting with patients and colleagues. Now, either one of these exams or both of them may be required for application to other pathways that may be to licensure that may be optional for you. Now let's return again to the challenges that one who is applying for residency position in Canada faces. First of all, as you saw, very limited number of seats for IMGs. Some specialties don't offer at all positions for international medical graduates or may have one or two for the entire Canada. Most of the seats for international medical graduates are in family medicine, followed by internal medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry, diagnostic and molecular pathology or general pathology, OB/GYN, sometimes medical microbiology. In the last years, we have seen also matches in ophthalmology, general surgery, anesthesiology, neurology, public health, but still they are limited. The other thing, and I would say the most difficult one for you, is that there is no one unified criteria which you need to meet and to know that when you meet it, you will be successful. Even passing the exams with flying marks or even performing very well on the interview does not guarantee success, honestly. It is and you have to consider this, but once you start the process, you should not give up. Because, again, if you consider what prevented you, I will give you after that one example, which I had just a couple of days ago. If you consider what happened, what you need to work on next year or in the next cycle, you will be successful. I'm sure I have seen many who are successful. So just don't give up and stay focused. Sorry, it is a very exhausting process and very competitive process. I would say very cruel. I used already that word, and I like it because you need to prepare very well and structure your CV to support especially your CARMS application. You need to write personal statements for each program to which you are applying based on the provided program description on CARMS. You need to provide your references, especially in the way in which they are required. Now, once again, your preparation becomes pivotal for your success. But it doesn't start when the CARMS portal opens. It starts much earlier. So if you intend to apply, let's say through the upcoming CARMS cycle, you need to start preparing yourself from May. June. Sorry. Now, although currency of practice is not a requirement for a residency application, unofficially, most of the programs prefer applicants who don't have gap in clinical practice or training, which is bigger than 3 years. Now, let's move to the practice readiness assessment pathway to licensure. I'm sure that most of you are eager to hear about this pathway. The practice readiness assessment pathway to licensure is not for all IMGs, but only for these of them who have certain length of postgraduate training overseas. In addition to obtaining their medical degrees, they need to have certain length of postgraduate training, but it is regardless of their citizenship and permanent residency status. That is a good thing, because if you qualify for this pathway, you may start its exploration while you are preparing yourself for it while you are still in Nigeria. However, when you actually obtain a sponsorship eligible position, you need to have a work permit or to be legally entitled to work in Canada in order to obtain an assessment position, of course, and later move forward to the actual assessment. Now, although the full name of the practice readiness assessment is National Collaboration Practice Readiness Assessment Framework, along with the similarities in the process, there are a lot of differences among the eligibility criteria of the 9 provinces that participate in this framework and that offer practice readiness assessment. This means that you need to get the right and the most current information in order to know where you are able to apply. You also need to know, this also applies to the other pathway, which the next pathway, which I'm going to discuss. You also need to know how you are coming to Canada, because, and discuss this with your, again, immigration counselor, because if you are coming through the provincial nominee program, as much as I know, you can't change the provinces. So you need to know the details about this and then make considerations again and make well-informed decision. Again, most of the opportunities for practice readiness assessment are in family medicine or in general practice. The educational requirement generally, I'm again speaking just generally, to qualify for practice readiness assessment for family medicine or general practice is either to have minimum of 24 months of postgraduate training in family or general medicine, or minimum 12 months of postgraduate rotational broad-based internship and 3 years of independent general practice after it. Again, this is a general requirement. There are differences, as I said, among different provinces, but I cannot discuss them in this session, because my aim is to provide you with the general overview. Otherwise, you will be overwhelmed with information. Only 2 provinces, unfortunately, offer practice readiness assessment for specialist physicians, and these are Manitoba and Alberta. And generally, the requirement for a specialist is to have minimum of 48 months of continuous postgraduate training in a certain specialty in a university-affiliated program, and after that, a specialty certification obtained by the nationally recognized specialty exam in the jurisdiction of training for specialty practice. The rest of the provinces for specialists, accept only the decision of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada regarding the eligibility of an IMG applicant to challenge the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada specialty exam, which may be obtained through the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada practice eligibility route, which is a different one from the practice readiness assessment. However, at the end, it again leads to meeting the provincial practice readiness assessment eligibility criteria in order to obtain a provisional license to practice. Now, practice readiness assessment leads to obtaining a provisional license to practice, which is a full license to practice. In sense, it is a temporary, because after a certain period of time, you need to either challenge the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada specialty exam in order to be moved from the provisional register to the independent register, or for family medicine, the College of Family Physicians of Canada a certifying examination in order to be moved again from the provisional to the independent register. But the provisional license to practice is a full license to practice, because if you obtain it, you will be the physician who will be in charge of providing care to your patients, and who actually will make independent clinical decisions with some limited supervision. But it is not about the decision, the clinical decision making process. Now, you need to know that the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada and the College of Family Physicians of Canada are just certifying bodies. To obtain a license to practice, you need to apply to the provincial regulatory bodies, or so-called colleges that regulate your profession within any different province. There is no license to practice in Canada on a federal level, but once you are on the independent register, you can move from one province to another very easily. Now, I'm not speaking about the fact, no, I won't go to details, because it will take us a lot of time if I start giving more and more and more, and you will be lost. So, currency of practice is another mandatory requirement for those. Here, it is a requirement, and the practice readiness assessment is a very time sensitive process. Generally, you must demonstrate currency of practice refers to a maximum 3 years of gap in clinical practice at the time of your application. Now, what are the challenges with the practice readiness assessment process? The process is very complicated and, as I said, time sensitive. Once you start it, you need to have a very well structured personal plan to know exactly when you need to pass an exam, what your next step will be, how to maintain best your currency of practice. The other challenge is that with the practice readiness assessment process, you need to obtain a sponsorship eligible position with the medical health authority in the province that is approved by the provincial medical regulatory authority. And this must happen in 1 year after obtaining the eligibility letter for practice readiness assessment, because without having this sponsorship, actually the sponsors will be your employers, without having this sponsorship, you cannot start the assessment. Now, sometimes, especially for specialists, it may be very challenging task to obtain a position because there may be no openings in that certain specialty. For family physicians and general practitioners, there is one more challenge, because simultaneously, while you are looking for sponsorship, you must pass one additional exam required for family and general practice, which is called therapeutic decision making exam, and for which you cannot register without having that eligibility letter, without being considered eligible for practice readiness assessment by the provincial regulatory body in one province. Now, the other way to licensure, which leads though to a limited license to practice, is to explore or obtain, again, if you are eligible, the position of associate physician or a licensed clinical assistant. That is a unique opportunity for IMGs who have minimum of 1 year of postgraduate training, no matter in what specialty, no matter if it is broad-based rotational internship. Of course, there is additional uh, eligibility criteria, very similar about currency of practice, about exams passed, very similar to that of the practice readiness assessment. And if you are eligible and if you obtain a position as a licensed clinical assistant or associate physician, you will be working, you will be licensed under this limited license to practice, but you will be working constantly under the supervision, the full supervision of a fully licensed physician here. Now, this position never leads, only in one province, but generally never leads to obtaining a full license to practice. What are the challenges? The first challenge is that associate physician or clinical assistant positions are not offered in any of the Canadian provinces. Practically, they are offered in British Columbia, in Alberta and Nova Scotia, rarely in New Brunswick, and in Newfoundland and Labrador. If you are coming to Canada again through the provincial nominee program, you have to know this. The other thing which is an issue, especially with physicians who have extensive background and strong professional identity, who have practical background, who have practiced independently overseas, this is an issue because not all physicians, not all of them are willing actually to work under supervision, and it is difficult for them to adjust to that situation because sometimes you may have been much more educated than your supervisor. You may have much more experience, but you have to adjust to this. Now, the truth is, this is not an alternative career because it is just for physicians and physicians with postgraduate training. Now, but if we speak about alternative integration, please note that there is nothing that is alternative and that is actually suitable for your education. Nothing. In any other alternative careers, you will be underemployed. So please, please, please don't give up and stay focused on your licensure. If this before you did it, you are able to do it as well. Now, why I'm saying you need to consider this, because you don't need to be, again, the requirement is to have just a work permit, and because this position will bring you into the Canadian clinical context and help you utilize the skills, your prior experience, your prior knowledge in a Canadian clinical context. So you will have a decent salary and you will be able to provide for yourself and your family, and at the same time support the achievement of your ultimate goal. The last pathway to licensure available for IMGs probably does not apply to you. That pathway is called direct transfer, and it is just for a very limited number of IMGs with postgraduate training and certification from one of the approved jurisdictions of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, or the College of for Family Physicians, the College of Family Physicians of Canada. These jurisdictions generally are United States of America, Australia, United Kingdom, Ireland, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Africa, and Switzerland. So if you have obtained your postgraduate training and license to practice and are certified for practice in one of these jurisdictions, you may move directly to the licensing in Canada. Currently, some provinces even are not asking for QE1 exam. What you need to do is just to demonstrate currency, again, of practice and postgraduate training. We are close to our conclusion. 2 more words. Now, the number of seats for any of these specific pathways leading to licensure, of course, depends on the identified healthcare needs in any Canadian province, and these needs vary from year to year. Currently, you are lucky. All over Canada, there is a clearly identified need for family physicians. This, however, does not mean that the regulatory bodies will compromise. On the opposite, they are very, very picky about meeting any single point, any single condition of the specific eligibility criteria. The other thing which is very important to consider is that when you are taking any of these pathway, you will be expected to demonstrate competence that is equal to the competence of physicians who were trained in a Canadian medical school or in a Canadian residency program of the specialty which you are targeting. The clinical expertise is just one aspect, but only one, of this competence. And in fact, you will demonstrate your clinical expertise once you pass the required Medical Council of Canada exams. But throughout the next steps leading to licensure, you need to demonstrate all other aspects or competencies that make up the professional image, as I told you at the beginning, of the contemporary physician in Canada. These are described in the CanMed competency framework, which is the guiding document for developing the curriculum of any residency program in Canada, and which at one moment literary needs to become your Bible, your Quran, your holy book. Here is actually the moment when you need to get the relevant and explicit support in reshaping your professional image, because as you understood, the pathway to licensure in Canada is require you not only to be eligible, actually being eligible is not equal to being competitive. Just after the second iteration matches one of my IMGs who is a very, very strong applicant, but with whom I didn't have chance to work on the interview prep. And I actually drilled with her the mock interview just probably 2 hours before her actual interview. She phoned and said, "Sorry, Rossalia, I did not match." And the reason why I did not match was because I did not provide very well structured responses, which we discussed about these CANMATS competencies. And now I didn't have the time to assimilate them. But I know that if we work on this, I will be able to make it. So these roles referred not only to medical expert, but to communicator, collaborator, leader, health advocate, scholar, and professional. Now I will be glad to answer your questions. Thank you for being so patient and probably very, very overwhelmed. Essay to you,
You,
please.
please.
I turned off my sound because I think it's interrupting the sound, but thank you so much because that was a lot of information. Even me, I'm not a doctor, I was overwhelmed. That is a lot, so I can't imagine how. I noticed that there are a few questions in the chat, and the main one that I see is if you could talk about the CPS BC pathway and if the MCCQEI is needed for physician associate jobs.
Okay, I can talk about the specific pathway in any province. So, actually, last year, I believe last year, yes, BC made a change and removed the requirement for QE1 when someone enters the assessment. But just to let you know that since this rule was implemented, we haven't seen very successes because it is a very, very competitive process as well. The same thing goes through the same, or there is a similar rule about in Nova Scotia. However, in British Columbia, they require for associate physician to have 1 year of postgraduate training, and but it depends on your practical experience. To tell you the truth, they are not asking for associate physicians to have a specific practice length of independent practice after that, but they need to demonstrate, of course, in the hiring process that they are eligible to be hired in different positions. Now, there are positions that are for people with background in specialties and positions in family medicine for associate physicians. That is what I will say. For practice readiness assessment in BC, the requirement is to have minimum 24 months of postgraduate training plus 2 years of independent practice after that. Now, much more if I want to be specific. BC is asking for full 6 months of practice or 24 weeks within the last 3 years before applying for a practice readiness assessment. Generally, that is what I will tell you. There is an agency in BC which is which stays in the middle between, this is called BC Health, between the applicant and the college, but you may apply directly to the college. If you have a gap which is bigger than 3 years of clinical practice, you may go in clinical practice, you need to go back to your country and work for 6 months before sending the application for practice readiness assessment in British Columbia. At the time when you are applying, you need to demonstrate your English language proficiency as well, and the validity of the test must be within the 2-year validity of the test standard test results. Once again, don't think at all that you will be successful without NCC QE1. You may, if you have really impressive clinical experience. But there are many from other countries with impressive clinical experience. So think about it. You may try, but at the same time, when you don't have the QE1, you limit yourself for exploring the practice readiness assessment opportunities only in BC, or I would say Nova Scotia. When at the same time, you may be eligible to explore it in Ontario, in Saskatchewan, or in Alberta, when you don't need to, or in Manitoba, when you don't need to have these 2 years independent practice after your 24 months of postgraduate training. That is what I will say. You will be lost if I start discussing the specific eligibility requirements. Essay to you.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. When you were talking about the interviews and preparing the client for interviews, I wanted to ask you, what kind of services do you offer in terms of like helping people who probably have listened to all of this, are overwhelmed by the process? What kind of services do you offer? So you help people prepare for the interviews. What else in terms of their application for the CAMS? Do you help them with like positioning themselves to make sure that they're in a better position to get matched?
Thank you, Essay. Probably you will share after that if you can, the link to my website on the chat. I want to be humble, but the truth is that my name is very popular among the IMG community in Canada. That is the truth, because I have been working with IMGs for almost 15 years, and I have been in leadership positions, not just providing counseling and advice to them, but also creating programs and implementing programs that address their immediate and constantly changing licensure needs. As you saw me, as you heard me, I don't believe in these alternative careers. I'm an immigrant myself, and to tell you the truth, this is just a waste of time. And at one moment, everybody whom I know wants to return to practice, but it costs that person years and years. Now, I just retired. I just retired from my work at Alberta International Medical Graduates Association. I will name the association to which I have been very, very loyal. And if you want, you may join that association. You may join the association and attend study group theirs. But unfortunately, that association is a non-profit and works with funding, and the provided funding for individual support is just for IMGs who are in Canada and who are either permanent residents or Canadian citizens. You don't have the right, actually, even if you join the association, to get that support, except to get 15 minutes drop-in chat with one of IMG's advisors. That was the reason why I have really extensive knowledge about the details of the licensure process, and I'm very current on all of this. So my that is the reason why I decided to create to establish the Lodestar to licensure. Lodestar means guiding star, like a Polestar to licensure, and offer individual support, or also I intend to offer workshops. So many of you, let's say, if you visit my website, I offer individual support. I offer counseling, 1 hour, 1.5 hour discussion, one-on-one through Microsoft Teams. I offer prep with the CVs. I also will offer a master class for CARMS. But my point is that if you want, just visit my website, subscribe, and send me an email that you want a workshop, let's say, on pathways to licensure through practice readiness assessment, or a workshop on pathways to licensure through residency. I will offer them, but because uh, I just opened my service and I know that I will get overwhelmed. Even now during the session, I'm getting messages on LinkedIn from IMGs who know me, and I will be overbooked probably in a week or two. But it is a good idea to send me email and just say, well, I'm interested. I'm in Nigeria, interested, let's say, in attending a 2 hour workshop. My workshops go usually to 2 hours. Just to let you know, I'm very, very detailed, but just let me know what the workshop you will be interested in, and then I will schedule it at the time which is let's say convenient for you. And when you subscribe to the website, I will send email or information so that you know when that workshop will be delivered, and you will be able to register for it. However, I need to have at least 20 people attending that workshop. My workshops have been attended by more than 200 people sometimes, to tell you the truth. So just I think that will work for everybody. Anything else? I think that you will post the website. The website is l2limg.com, I believe, but as I will post it in the chat.
Exactly. I'll post it immediately after the video. So you'll have it in the comments and you can rewatch the video, and you can definitely use the website and contact Rosalia because she'll be very helpful to you on your journey. I don't think there's anywhere else you could get all this information and just have it digested in an hour, 30 minutes. And there's a lot more and you can learn about the process. So I'll encourage you to use the website. I'll also post it on Instagram so that you can see it. I want to say, Rosalia, thank you so much. We are actually, someone left a comment to say we are lucky and privileged to have you here. So, truly, truly appreciate that you were able to take out a lot of your time today, an hour, 30 minutes. Time is so valuable in Canada to really talk to people about this. And just want to say thank you so much.
Honestly, I
I
have
have
worked
worked
with IMGs from all over the world, but I really, really praise Nigerians. I know that you are hardworking. I know that you are goal oriented, and I know that you are serious. So it won't be an easy journey, but together we can we can do it. It was my pleasure being among you and delivering this session to you. Again, thank you for just destroying your Friday night, but I believe you had the information which you needed. And this is just the very, very beginning. Thank you, I say.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. This video is going to go live immediately, and then the website is going to be posted. I'll send it out by email as well, and I'll put it on Instagram so that you can see it and contact her. If you want to move ahead with this process, there's no point going through the process and trying to learn on your own from the start when there's someone who has been helping people for over 15 years, who has the most recent experience, the statistics, everything, and can just help you through, hold your hands. The one thing I have learned in my journey as an immigrant is the same journey you can walk it and it can take you 10 years. Someone can hold your hand, a mentor can help you to understand that they've been through this and can walk you through this. They've worked with people in that field and can help you through it. It can help you speed down that journey of 10 years to 1 year to 9 months to 6 months. So it's something you should take advantage of. It's not everything that you can just research on the internet and find out the entire process. I'm sure you've done a lot of it and you haven't learned half of what you learned today. So thank you so much, and I would post it, and I look forward to uh, making sure that everyone is able to gain the most they can from your workshops and everything that you have to offer. Thank you so so much.
Thank you
Thank you
again.
again.
It was
It
my
was my
pleasure.
pleasure.
Okay, everyone, thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.